All right, everybody, welcome to Philo Sapiens, where religion meets reason. And today we have another English stream. And what we're going to do is we're going to debunk a couple of shorts or videos of Muslim apologists. What do we have in list? I don't know. We're going to run a few and see which one we can rebut. Something that's going to give us some, philosophical, arguments to rebut. And so, welcome to my co-host Mahaden. How are you doing, Mahaden?
I'm all right. I'm all right. Looking forward to today's stream. Hopefully, it's going to be a short one today because we're a bit late today.
Yeah, I think we're late, and so let's see if we can have our third co-host, Kelly, joining us.
Yeah.
So if we can, that'll be good. If not, then two of us are gonna steer the sheep, not the sheep, but the ship. Right. So let's start.
Yeah. Who are you, Muhammad?
Oh, did you get a chance to see any of the ones that I posted?
Briefly, I saw the clips. Yeah, you can play them. You can play them.
All right, let's run this one then.
Okay.
Okay, I think I got the link wrong.
Okay.
All right, can you see the screen?
Yep.
All right, we what is it about? Let's listen to it.
Even the Big Bang would lead you to believe in God, actually. Because how can you have matter? And even if you believe in the Big Bang would lead you to believe in God, actually. Because how can you have matter and energy come from nowhere? How can they compress themselves into a singularity and expand? How is that possible?
I haven't done enough research.
No, but science cannot answer that question, because science says at that point, all our laws were infinite. Everything was infinite. So we cannot measure whatever was happening that time.
I don't know what this guy is talking about, Muslim lantern. Right? Science doesn't say anything about the singularity, right? And laws were infinite, I think. Did I hear him wrong? Right?
Yeah.
No, but science cannot answer that question, because science says at that point, all our laws were infinite. Everything was infinite. So we cannot measure.
All our laws were infinite. What the hell is that? Okay. By the way, science cannot answer is a massive claim. Okay, you can say science cannot answer it as yet. I think probably 200 years back, nobody even knew that there is a world outside this world, or there's anything beyond our solar system. All we knew, there were stars, there were other galaxies that was not known until the beginning of the 20th century, right? So science progresses slowly. So you cannot definitively say that science cannot answer the question what was beyond the singularity. Probably there are still a couple of models that we have. Maybe conformal cyclic cosmology is there, loop quantum gravity is there. There are a couple of models that try to explain what was beyond, as in quote unquote beyond the Big Bang, basically, or the singularity. And what happens at the singularities are all our laws of classical physics break down, basically, as the quantum effects take effect, basically. So I'm not quite sure what he's on about, basically. Anyway, let's listen a little bit more.
major, whatever is happening before. So science is limited. Science cannot know everything. It's only limited to the physical reality, that which you can study, put under a microscope, etc. So if science is limited there, and that's not a question of the physical anyway, it's a question of a metaphysical thing. What started the whole physical existence, the whole reality that we live in? But I would say to say I don't have an answer to the question doesn't mean there is no answer to the question. Would you agree? If you believe in science, you should believe in cause and effect.
No, I think there is an answer to it.
Okay, sure. So, do you agree that you cannot have something from absolute nothingness? No matter, no energy, nothing. Absolute nothing. Can you have something from?
All right. So Muhammad Ali cannot stay on one single topic. Basically, he started off with Big Bang. So I thought probably he's going to run the Kalam cosmological argument. But no, he just straight away jumped on to something else. Do you believe in cause and effect? If you believe in science, you have to believe in cause and effect.
Yeah, I think this is his own little flavor of the Kalam cosmological. He's coming at it from different angles to hit at this person. But let's listen to what he says.
Okay, let's listen to it. You have nothing to add so far, right? I mean, you want to listen to it completely.
I've mentioned, we've talked about this so many times. I think everybody might already know, but yeah, just let's hear something a bit more substantive from him, and then we'll.
From that,
I guess you can.
You can have something for absolute nothingness. Which scientist would say that?
I don't know, but
there's no scientist on earth that would posit that.
You're saying there's a creator.
Yes.
Where did he come from?
Okay, that is the always question that people ask. I'll tell you, look, if we say someone, I haven't answered the question, it's an easy question. If you have someone that created God, you will have to pose it the same question, who created God? And then you will go into something called infinite regression, okay? And then nothing can exist. So the fact that we exist today means that there is no infinite regression. It means there's something eternal. So that proves God. So you just proved God.
It's very good.
So we need by necessity something eternal. There has to be something eternal always existing.
You're very convincing. Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
All right, Madin. We cannot run these videos for a longer run, basically, because then if we go on to monetize them, there are gonna be problems from YouTube. So what I wanted to ask you here, hold on, can you just hold on for a second? All right. So nothing can come from nothing, right? That's the claim he's making. And the fundamental question is, what kind of nothing are you talking about, right? I mean, if you define nothing as something which has no potentiality, and by definition, nothing can come out of it, then for sure, right? But then throughout our history, we have taken nothing to mean very different things, basically, right? In his book, Lawrence Krauss talks about something from nothing, basically. And his nothing is not absolute nothing by definition, as in, I mean, he doesn't say nothing can come out of that nothing. He says something can come out of that nothing. And even another one of cosmologists, Alex Valenkin, also says the same thing, basically, right? That something can come out of nothing, but that nothing is not exactly absolute nothing, right? So this is what, how you define nothing, basically. But then if you set those points aside as well, you have to ask, how does the creator, quote unquote creator, or the God create something out of nothing, basically? If you by definition or from a logical standpoint, if you say nothing can come out of nothing, then your God should not be able to violate that logical problem as well, basically, unless until you say that God has a potential to create something, and that's not nothing, basically, right? So that's another way to solve that dilemma for a theist, pretty much. But you cannot say that God can create it from nothing. I mean, that will be a logical fallacy, basically, akin to something like, can God lift something, create something heavy enough that he can't lift? Basically, it's a logical. It's another issue. I am not going to go into that problem as to why God cannot do, logically contradictory things, because that's going to be a different issue. But Madin, what do you have to add to this?
Yeah. So the first issue is that he's misconstruing the events prior to the Big Bang, or if that makes any sense. Anyway, prior to or in logical, chronological order to, in the sense that there's a temporal beginning. There's some sort of first step, or non-temporal, if you want to call it. As William Lane Craig says, that there might be something logically prior to the Big Bang. In this sense, it's a non-temporal prior. A non-temporal prior meaning that it is not in a set of chain of events in a temporal sense. A follows B follows A, C follows B, D follows. It's a temporal sequence. 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute. There's no time whatsoever. And what William Lane Craig would say is that God is logically prior, but not temporally prior. Whatever the case, we don't have any reason to think that there was anything of such from the Big Bang itself. The Big Bang cosmology is not saying, for example, that there was a bang that came out of nothing. That's not what the Big Bang science suggests, right? In fact, the Big Bang science suggests that I think the vast majority of opinion now is that we actually don't know what happens at t equals 0. So whether or not there was absolute nothing, and absolute nothing meaning the philosophical nothing, where there's absolutely nothing, no space, there's no time, there's no atoms, there's no matter, there's nothing, no potentiality whatsoever. We have no reason to think that was the case then. Prior to the whatever prior means, it's constrained to use this language, but I'm using it in a commonsensical sense for us to understand. Well, whatever it means.
Yeah,
we
I
don't
think our
think
language breaks down in talking about those topics, basically, the subjects of metaphysics concerning anything, beyond that side of the singularity, right? So our language, unfortunately, we don't have any other language to talk about it. And so we have to use all those same words and sentences that require the, temporal connotations, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So William Lane Craig tries to call it logically prior. If you can try and get your head around that, what it means is that it wasn't causally prior in the sense of a temporal frame of events. It was still causally prior, but causally prior not in an atemporal sense. But when you start thinking about it that way, when you think about atemporally prior, you might think of it as like a four-dimensional universe or something, where there is a initial event, but it's all happening at the same time. It's like some frozen sort of imagine a frozen galaxy. Imagine all of events of history, a four-dimensional universe. What we mean by four-dimensional universe, there is no such time, ticking time, right? There's no flow of events. Everything is just happening all at the same time, right? So my birth, my infantile upbringing, my prepubescent years, my teenage years, all are just one like frame, one thing. So imagine like a comic book, and you just have each section of the events of a comic book, happening, right? Now we obviously visualize it to happen one after another, but just imagine the comic book and imagine each slide, each snapshot of the events all being present at the same time, right? And I think that's one way to think of atemporality. And I'm not sure how we can apply it to the concept of a God. I mean, you'd imagine God to be eternal, and then he will then create the universe. But it's very difficult to think about it that way, because when we say then, we're not actually saying that God existed and then came the universe. It would by default mean that God existed and the universe existed, and therefore the universe was also eternal with God, right? It's very difficult to fathom that.
Exactly. I think it's a sometimes he uses the language of simultaneous causation, basically, right?
Yeah,
Uh, the time was created at the same time, as the universe was created, basically, and yeah, I mean, it's hard to wrap your head around. And as you said, the first creation, in this sense, before the time was created, would have to be eternal, co-eternal with God itself, himself,
yeah,
basically, right?
yeah. So basically, what the Muslim lantern is saying is that his fundamental mistake here is that he's thinking that the Big Bang science points towards a fundamental nothing in which the Big Bang arised, and nothing of the science confirms any of that. And therefore, without knowing exactly what happened around the Big Bang, the seconds or what you want to call it, we can't say that there was absolute nothing. And if we can't say there was absolute nothing, then it's entirely possible that there was something, and therefore there is no issue of needing to explain the universe with an extra entity prior to it, either logically prior or temporally prior, because we don't know what exactly happened at t equals 0. It could have been the case that there was always something, and that was part of the universe, the initial conditions of the universe was always there eternally, right? And I just want to clarify, when I say there's a four-dimensional space kind of eternal universe, etc., a B theory of time, if you want to call it. I might be caricaturing it there a bit too much. Physicists may understand that better than I do. But if we do accept this kind of B theory type of, there's nothing wrong with that in terms of its philosophical coherence. But there is
Yeah,
something wrong.
for the audience,
Yeah,
Madan, just briefly explain a B theory of time, basically. And what it is that all instances of time exist at the same time, basically, right? There is the A theory of time says presentism, basically. Each moment is here at present, basically. So past is gone as to t minus whatever
yeah,
x, and future is to come t plus x, basically. And
yes,
t
that's right.
equals to t is right now is the presentism, basically. But B theory of time is different, which says all moments are present at the same time, basically. And so, as Madan said, I'm also explaining it in very nutshell. But
Yeah,
anybody interested should go and read that. Large majority of cosmologists believe in B theory of time, basically. But for theists like William Lane Craig, they support A theory of time. And for
that's right.
them, yeah. Go ahead, Madan.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. On A theory, there's a past, present, and future, but they're not happening simultaneously. Of course, the past has gone. We're in the present, and the future is coming, etc. There's a flow of time, etc. And on B theory, past, present, and the future, they all exist at the same time. That's a very simple way of putting it. If anybody wants to read further into it, you may want to look into the Mick Taggart, I think, the philosopher Mick Taggart, and his theories of time and paradoxes of time, etc., and so on. And on B theory, like Philo said, and I said, you got to imagine it like a comic book, where each one of your imagine your life being a assembly of photographic snapshots, right? And they're all being laid out there. So imagine a snapshot for each fragment of time, or whatever, each fragment of moment. Yeah, each moment, right? All the way from your birth to your death. Obviously, that's just I'm simplifying. Obviously, we're talking about the entire universe, not just your life. But I'm just, in order to make it seem intuitive and understandable for the audience. Imagine a photographer took photos of you at each moment, and then laid out all of the photographs, right? And that's your life. Now you can see the future on the far right. You can see the past in the far left, when you were born, and the future when you died, right? But all of those events are just all happening at the same time. All of them happening at the same time. It's not as though you were born and then you were this, then you were that, and then you grew up, right? That's just an illusion. It's an experience that you think you're having, etc. But reality is all of those events are just all happen at the same time. Now, there's no logical incoherence with that. You might think there is, because you may say, but wait a minute. I am clearly experiencing a flow of time, right? That contradicts this notion of no flow of time. But the idea behind it is that the reason that there's no philosophical inconsistency or contradiction is because each fragment, each segment of this kind of sequence of events all happens at the same time, and therefore it creates an illusion of the passing of time. Reality is that you 1 minute from now is a very different version of you 2 minutes from now, a very different version of you 3 minutes from now, and they're all just experiencing things. So me right now is very different from me tomorrow, right? That's a different photograph on this sequence. But if they all simultaneously kind of consciously kind of experience this, then you have this kind of illusion, almost like a art. What's that sketch? Cartoon kind of sketch flip books, right? Creating an illusion
Yeah,
of movement.
books.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not the best way I've kind of described it because it's very difficult to describe, but it's kind of like that. So there's no real passing of time. It's just everything's just frozen, really, in this kind of iceberg of things, the past, present, and the future. And all we mean by the past then and the present and the future are different locations on this iceberg, different locations on this photography chain, right? When we say the future, we mean on the right, and when we mean the past, we mean on the left, all the way, that photograph down there. That's all we mean. We don't really mean a past that actually, kind of moves like a cinema reel, one after another, etc.
Right.
And there's no logical incoherence with that, but it does attack the fundamentals of theism because on theism you need a theory, like Kalam cosmological argument needs the A theory to posit that there has to be something before, etc. But if you render the need for a theory gone, you don't need a theory anymore. There's no need any longer to think that the problems of infinite regress, for example, that goes out the window, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can alternately you can say that this space time is self-contained. Basically, it doesn't require anything else. Basically, outside there's no the words like outside or before are meaningless in B theory of time, basically, because it is self-contained. You understand this?
Yeah.
I think it's if you're talking about a hypercube, basically, hypercube is a 4-dimensional structure, right? It is self-contained structure, basically, right? Everything falls within that hypercube, and the 3 sides of hypercube are x, y, and z, which is the space, and the 4th dimension is time, basically, right? I think maybe we are overcomplicating it. So let's get back to his argument, basically, right? So what he says is, you have to. Second thing that he said, that you cannot have infinite regress, basically, right? And Muhammad Ali hasn't given any reason to doubt that. I mean, see, how would you say that you cannot? I mean, how would you make a statement like you cannot have infinite regress? You have to point out at a logical fallacy, because unless until you point out at a logical fallacy or a contradiction showing that if you run an infinite regress, this is what the contradiction you get, that's when you'll say, okay, it's not possible, at least not logically. So in what sense is he saying? Is it not logically possible? Impossible? Is it metaphysically impossible? So he hasn't given any of those 2 reasons, basically, to at least support his claim, right? And what he's so let me steel man his case, basically. So what I think he's trying to say is there are a couple of paradoxes that arise when you're talking about infinities, right? And what are these paradoxes? These are probably Benedetti paradox, or these are Hilbert Hotel paradoxes, basically, right? And those of you who have heard what Hilbert-Hotel paradoxes or Benedetti paradoxes are, they lead you to absurd conclusions when you run these kind of, you have a hotel with infinite rooms. If another guest comes in, how do you adjust this? You move all the guests one room up, and then you have a space for one more, right? So those kind of things, basically, if you remove all the odd numbered guess how many rooms you are left with, you are still left with infinity. So those kind of paradoxes are the ones that are cited to support the case that you cannot have infinite regress. But this doesn't really logically follow, basically, right? So they'll have to support. So it's possible that conjunction of a few things may not be possible at the same time, basically, right? First thing first, I mean, anybody, for me, I'll say that for myself, there's no logical contradiction is saying that every cause or every effect requires a prior cause, basically, right? And that's how we arrive to present, basically, right? And there's no contradiction. Nobody can say that you cannot arrive to. I think all these contradictions arrive basically when you. I think most of these apologists try to give one example that has been that's known to be a flawed example. They say if there is a sharpshooter, he has to shoot, let's say, someone, right? And he asks for permission to the guy behind him, right, to shoot at this guy, right? And that guy asks for permission to the guy behind him, and so on and so forth. Will the sharpshooter, the first one, be able to shoot that guy or not? So this is the kind of analogies that they give, and this analogy is not really analogous to the situation of causal finitude or infinitude, basically. Yeah, anybody can understand it. Basically, the current cause is not asking for causes behind to act ahead, basically, or to cause it, basically, right? So these two analogies don't really match, basically. So that's the point. Anybody who wants to read the rebuttals to these, maybe this is beyond the scope of this stream, basically, but there are rebuttals to these paradoxes. So if anybody wants, they can write on the comment section, and I can provide links to where they can find rebuttals to these things. But anyways, my point being, Muhammad Ali hasn't given any reason to, say why infinite regress is not possible. I'm not saying it's possible. I'm saying he has to, since his claim is, an absolute claim, he has to provide a reason as to why it's impossible. Madan.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that you can't get to the present through a successive addition, through a series of backwards regress of events, one by one. For example, like you said, if the sniper today won't shoot, if the sniper behind it didn't give it a command, and the sniper behind that one didn't give it a command, and the sniper behind it didn't give it that one a command, and all the way up to an infinity. But if you can't reach all the way to the first sniper, because it'll keep going back, because you don't have a first initial sniper. You just have an infinite series of snipers all the way going backwards. So what would the sniper shoot? No. So you can't have any events if you don't have a first event. If you have an eternal chain of backward regressive events, then you're stuck with the sniper problem, where the sniper will never shoot, and therefore nothing will happen. And if nothing will happen, the universe won't come into existence, because today's events required, the events today required the events yesterday to happen, events yesterday, the events the day before, or etc. All the way, whatever causal sort of chain of events. The stars needed X, Y, Z to happen, and the X, Y, Z needed that to happen, etc. But just like the sniper analogy, if you don't have an initial mover, then nothing will move, because you'll always end up with an infinite series of backward chain of snipers all waiting for permission, right? Well, this doesn't really apply. This might seem intuitively plausible, But some philosophers call this the rabbit and the goose or rabbit and the duck problem. If you notice these images that you see on memes online, etc., where you look at a picture and it looks like a rabbit, and then you turn it around and then it looks like a duck, right? In other words, depending on how you look at the picture, it may look like a duck or you may look like a rabbit. And I submit that this is very similar to that. That depending on how you look at it, as a matter of perspective, you can resolve the issue. So the way I've articulated and the way Philo has articulated, the sniper problem makes it sound like the without a prime mover, without a prime sniper, this entire chain of snipers will never shoot, right? And therefore, the sniper up front won't shoot. Sniper yesterday who shot somebody won't shoot because they're all waiting for permission, and there's no initial prime mover. But if you just flip that, now what looks like a rabbit, it now will look like a duck, right? The flip move here is for instead of thinking about. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, Madan, I just want to make it easy for our audience. These two problems, the sniper problem, and some infinite chain of events causing today, basically, right? The present is not analogous, right? Because those two are in different problems. As you said, they are flipped, basically, right? They are flipped. You cannot apply the same analogy to this current,
let me just explain what I mean, though. I mean, forget the universe right now.
No, you're saying it the right way. You're saying it the right way. I'm not questioning whether you're saying it or not. I just thought that maybe the audience might get confused with that, rabbit and duck thing, and that's why I just wanted to make sure that what you are explaining is exactly what it is. Basically, you cannot apply the rabbit image and say that it should look like exactly like the same when you flip it over, basically, right? That's the sniper analogy, right?
Yeah, well, kind of. What I'm trying to say is like you've seen these images online, haven't you? Where from one angle it looks like.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to say is, if you look at the sniper analogy in and of itself, forget the universe for now. Just think about the sniper. Even that, if you just think about it differently, you can resolve the problem, right? So the problem begins when you start thinking about it as though the snipers are there. There's a sniper, and before that sniper, there's another sniper. Before that sniper, there's another sniper. Before that sniper, etc., to an infinite regress, and each one is waiting for permission. Of course, if the one before it doesn't give permission, then the one after it won't do anything, and the one before that, if it doesn't give permission, the one after that one won't do anything. If the one, etc., and you don't get the snipers moving at all, right? Shooting at all, because there isn't any first sniper to do it. So that's where the problem is. But I'm saying we can get rid of this problem by thinking about it this way. Instead of thinking about the snipers waiting for permission, right? Because we have no obligation to think about it this way, right? What you can think about is this: as the following: that the sniper today shot because the sniper yesterday gave permission, and the sniper before that gave permission, and the sniper before that gave permission, and the sniper before that gave permission, and sniper before that gave
exactly right. You don't have to ask for permission. Basically, you can flip the problem by saying that the permission was already with the sniper at number X. From X, it came to X plus 1, X minus 1 towards us, and then X minus 2, and then finally to number 1.
Right? And if the sniper analogy is a bit complicated, think of it as cars. If the car is to move, the one car before it has to bump into its bumper, and the car before it needs to bump into its bumper. Or dominoes. If one domino needs to fall, the one domino before it needs to fall, and the one domino before it needs to fall, etc. But the problem, what these people like William Ray Craig think, is that the dominoes are waiting to be fallen, right? But you don't need to think about it this way. You think about it the following way: that the dominoes have been falling.
Have always been falling, right? Given the infinite time, the current one will fall for sure.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. So the domino up front has fallen, the domino before it has fallen, because the domino before it has fallen. And if you each ask why, how did the dominoes fall? Because there's always one domino before the other one that has fallen. And what about the one before that? There was another one. There was one. What about the one before that? There was another one. Nowhere in the chain is there any single domino that hasn't fallen. They're all just falling.
Exactly.
Therefore, all of the dominoes are falling, and therefore it's moving. Nowhere in the chain do you therefore get any a single domino that has.
You don't need a domino starter basically, or the first domino mover kind of thing.
And this is why people say that when people say that an infinite regress can't exist for this sort of reasoning, they beg the question that you need a first initial cause. But the reality is an infinite successive regress of events, or today's events caused by an infinite regress or through successive addition doesn't need a initial event, right? By definition, right? Because there's always on the chain something that's causing it, right? And that's just it. Wherever you go on this chain, there's something that's caused it. At no point. So we're not assuming that there's some sort of domino out there that's ready to be tipped over. They're always tipping over. And if you just thinking about this way, all of the logical problems have disappeared, right? There's no logical contradiction in that. It's not like a square triangle, because I do have an explanation, a sufficient explanation for each domino falling, sufficient causal explanation, right, for each domino. Yeah, you can say it's just for every domino there's another domino. That end, right?
Yeah.
And now
it's a self-sustaining cause, basically, or reason, right?
Yeah. So
Sorry,
I've just looked. Yeah, what I've done is I've just looked at the rabbit from a different angle, and now it looks like a duck. Can you see? So I submit that this entire thing is psychological. It's a psychological illusion. It's not a metaphysical or logical problem. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I was on pause.
Hello?
So, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's run it now a little bit more. Maybe there is a lag at your side. Is there?
Philo, are you there?
Can you hear me? I think my voice is really low, I think. Can you hear me? Okay, Madan, I think I should be audible. If public in the listening audience can tell whether my voice is audible or not. Let's listen to it a little bit further, right?
She's right. She means like basically how the laws are. Like there's an interesting book written by Martin Rees. It's called 6 Numbers. You can read it. It will show you an infinite amount of numbers and how the equations in the universe are so precise that if anything was different, there would be no universe. Like for example, you have atoms started like 300 years after the Big Bang. Like if it was any different, you cannot have a universe. Then on top of that, you can add life. That is even more complex. It's called the fine-tuning of the universe. So the more you look at the universe, you know it's impossible for you to have these precise measurements without a determiner that determines everything the way it is. You know, when you leave.
All right, now we have Muhammad Ali jumping on to another argument, basically. So he's just hopping on to different arguments. Basically, he started off with, Kalam cosmological argument. Then he touched upon contingency, which is, I think, Martin, were you able to hear?
I think my internet dropped for a bit, unfortunately.
Yeah, you dropped out for a bit, basically. So shall I rerun it?
No,
I ran past a little bit.
No, you can do what you want. Just take off from where we were. No, sorry, take off from where you were. Sorry, before I just come back. Yep, just continue.
All right. So now he's hopped on from Kalam cosmological argument to he touched upon contingency, which I think he's still thinking in his he's assessing it to be part of a Kalam cosmological argument. And then now he's on to fine-tuning argument. Basically, he's saying, if all these fundamental constants were, a little bit here and there, you wouldn't have even atoms forming. Either the universe would collapse due to, gravity being too high, or it would just, disperse into nothingness without having formed any of the atoms, basically. So that's the classical fine-tuning argument. I mean, one of the very, very basic questions is, why would God have to, rely so heavily upon, right, so finely tuned fundamental constants, right? That's perplexing, basically, right? I mean, you can explain, even if you wanted to, say that these were fine tuned and these constants were maybe these constants are necessary, or maybe they came up this way by chance, as the multiverse theory says. Basically, there could be 10 to the power 500 universes, right? And one of us, came out to be just the way it is, that harbors life, basically, right? So why would God needs all these constants to be so precise? For if God's aim was to bring, its most favored creation, humans, into the universe, basically, doesn't make much sense. It can be explained better if some by random chance or some naturalistic theory is more favored, basically, right? Or is supported, basically. So I'm not quite sure. What do you think about fine-tuning argument, Martin?
Yeah, I think we've talked about fine tuning quite extensively before, so I think everybody kind of knows who has been following us meticulously. Can I just say though, if somebody wants to come on, if you want to come on and have a conversation or discussion with us regarding any of these matters, you can feel free, I think, to do so. I think Philo may want to disappear, but I can stay if that's the case. And
so I'll just open the link. I'll just make the link public. So if you want, do join. And
I'll just say, subject to the condition that my internet remains good. So if anybody does come on and find that I'm having difficulties with internet, then we'll just have to eventually abandon the plan unless Philo is here and he wants to continue the conversation. But if neither of us is here, me not being here for the internet, and Philo not being here because he has to go, then unfortunately we'll just have to call it a day. But otherwise,
I'll stick here for another 15-20 minutes or so at max, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. And if anybody wants to join in between, I have made the link public. And you can either come and have a conversation with both of us, or you can have a conversation with Mardan once I leave. And in between, we're gonna run a couple of videos or clips or shorts, basically.
Yeah. So what I would say, strengthening Philo's point, is that on naturalism, it's far better predicted on the data as a better prediction of the data, that the data being that world the way it is, and it's a far better prediction that of naturalism, that you'll have this sort of data, this kind of massive, perplexing universe of galaxies and trillions of stars and random implosions and so on and so forth, and then eventually you'll have this kind of gradual evolution, and then you will, through haphazard, crazy, insane, inane processes, create complex life, and then eventually all of that is suggestive of a grand sort of universe of chance events, right? And we do have the data to support that, because you have the trillions of galaxies to support the extremely high probabilities, etc.
Yeah, trillions and trillions of galaxies in the known world, basically, or known
Yeah,
universe, basically,
yeah,
right?
because
And the
so many.
boundaries are not yet settled, basically. I mean, some of the cosmologists, like the Nobel Prize winning cosmologist, Pete, what's his name, Roger Penrose says that it's quite possible that the universe is 10 to the power 23 times bigger than what we know as of
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
or
that's
could be
right.
infinite as well, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, so it supports even the lowest of the most absurd of probabilities and numbers, etc. So you may say, some, for example, how could life come about because of X, Y, Z probabilities? Highly unlikely for this chemical reaction to occur, or DNA to form, etc. Whatever. But we have to treat these theories fairly. Naturalism, which is it came through natural events, versus theism, which it came through a divine, perfect, merciful, benevolent creator, right? On the naturalism view, do we have the data to support it? Well, we do have the very, very, very large universe, and counting. When I say counting, meaning that it could be larger, right? And therefore, any sort of odd, sort of highly improbable number, which we can't really know the probability distribution of, but seemingly, yeah, it could be accounted for, because we have these trillions of stars, we have this very large old universe, and we have this kind of unassisted set of natural events that we've already seen, right? So it kind of fits that model. It kind of fits that hypothesis. When I say unassisted, I mean without any divine, conscious being, tinkerer, creator, right? For example, we something like evolution, for example, natural selection is enough to explain it, etc. We have these mechanisms already. So or something like the Goldilocks regions of the Earth, that people purport to be like Earth to be some sort of like a Goldilocks fairy tale, not fairy tale, but children's tale. Was just right for life to form or something, but you can be accounted for because you have the multitude of planets, right? So if it might be extremely low number, extremely highly improbable number, well, if you have lots of planets, then it's just the case that one of them is going to turn out to be one that's habitable, because it falls in the right range. So you can't explain that through that, and we have that sort of large sort of universe to explain other constants, etc., and so on. But on the theory of God, right? He didn't have to tinker this way. He didn't have to kind of fine tune anything, right? Right? There's no need to create a large universe. As some people would say, like create a massive ocean just for a drop to be created or something. You don't need the entire kind of chaos Earth to create the solar system, etc. You don't need gradual evolution for 4.5 billion years, where predators are eating prey and killing them in torturous and atrocious means, and to create complex life. He could have just created all of this instantaneously.
Yes, exactly. Martin, again, are you having internet issues, or you just broke off, or you stopped? I think Martin is having some internet issues. But yes, just to support what Mahadan is saying, is basically it seems like if God's intention is ultimate intention, and we cannot be 100% sure, but it seems as if God's main intention is to create humans, because at least
Hello.
from an Islamic standpoint, uh, we are the ashraful makhluqat, basically, right? We are the pinnacle of the beings, basically, that God wanted to create, basically. So in that sense, it seems like trillions and trillions of galaxies is a waste of waste of space, waste of 13.8 billion years of you know uh, time till humans are created. It's not exactly 13.8, but let's say 13.72 or whatever it is, because humans have been here at least in some form, and a great ape form, for past 6 million years or so, right? So it sounds as if the naturalism explains this data. At least on naturalism, this kind of data fits better than theism, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because yeah, Madan, go ahead. I think you
No,
broke
yeah.
off for a bit.
I know,
Yeah,
I know. Oh, yeah, no, that's right, that's right. You don't need all these sequence of events to happen for things to form, and it doesn't have to just be human beings. Anything in the universe could have been created without the great redundant nature of all these other stuff that had to happen to create one thing. Like a planet didn't have to form due to all these cosmic events, then eventually Jupiter to form, right? I'm not saying that God can't do that. God can, for example, trigger a chain of kind of chaotic events and then eventually lead to the formation of Jupiter. God can create a series of chaotic events to eventually lead to the creation of anything else. God can do that, but He has many other ways of designing the same thing, right? On naturalism, you don't have that many other ways of a specific type of naturalism, which is through chance events. The specific type of naturalism that where these sort of things happen through a series of chance events, you need a constellation of many different events, so so that some stuff fall into order, right?
yeah, and you need wastefulness, basically, because you're dealing with chances pretty much, right?
Exactly.
And
So yeah,
so
so some people,
you'll it'll
yeah,
be
people,
predicted through naturalism that you'll
yeah,
have trillions and trillions of galaxies. Within those trillions and trillions of galaxies, you'll have trillions of stars, or hundreds of billions of stars. Within those, you'll have like hundreds and hundreds of billions of planets, some of which might harbor life from the primordial soup or something, whatever you may have, basically, right? So that's kind of you can have a model that can predict with a higher probability on naturalism rather than on theism, right?
yeah,
And one more thing, Madan, I wanted to point out here is, whatever these constants that we see in the whatever these fundamental constants are, these are our observations. We don't know exactly whether these all constants that we assume to be fundamental are really fundamental or not, because our physics breaks down trying to find that out. Maybe 100 years or 200 years from now, we come to a finding that there's only one fundamental constant, and whatever that may be, and that had to be this way. And basically, what it means is, there is no fine tuning. It was just kind of a necessitarianism, if you want to call it that way. Basically, everything was right there, and uh, it didn't need to be finely tuned. It was just what it had to be, basically, to create this universe, right? So
yeah,
that's another thing is the probability distribution that you touched upon briefly, but I just want to stress that point as well. We don't know, even if, let's assume, these constants are the fundamental constants, we don't exactly know whether the dice was loaded or not. Basically, what I mean here is that we don't know whether these constants have what probability distributions these constants have. Basically, for all we know, it's possible that these fundamental constants may be loaded. Basically, right? They couldn't assume any other value. So that's one more thing. And
Yeah, that's
the
right.
point being, we don't have much information about all these things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For all those reasons, the fine tuning argument, it doesn't really get off its ground. Basically, they're not. We don't really know whether they're actually fine tuned, because we don't know the probability distribution. We only have one universe. We don't have anything to compare it to, so we don't really know whether those values can actually. They're free values, right? Those values can, when somebody say 1 to the 10 to the power of gazillion or whatever nowadays they talk about to make it, inflate it as improbable as possible. Um, we don't know whether that's a real probability. That's the real probability. Um, Lots of physicists saying the same thing, right? Because
Yeah, these exactly, Madan. These are all conceptual probabilities. Basically, it's like
yes,
a armchair probabilities. If I can be a more what do you call facetious in that sense, basically, because how are probabilities? You to say a coin is a fair coin, you have to keep flipping it many times to see whether it's a fair coin or not. Basically, right? For our universe, we only have one sample, right?
yeah,
And
that's
you
right.
just can't get the probabilities from it, right? I mean, let's say you found a coin on the ground. How would you test whether it's a fair coin or not? You'll keep flipping it many thousands of times, and if you get as many numbers of heads as tails, then you'll conclude that it's a fair coin. Otherwise, you don't have any other means of saying
Yeah.
whether it's a fair coin or not.
Yeah, and this same sort of thinking has led to a reduction in the number of potential fine-tuned constants. So there was multiple possible theoretical fine-tuned constants 50 years ago that we just don't think is fine-tuned anymore. Physicists have made inroads, and has they've gained greater understanding and knowledge about certain what seemed like fine-tuned parameters were just necessary consequences of other stuff.
I think Madin is having serious trouble with his internet today. So, Madan, not quite sure. I think maybe we should call the stream off for today. And let's see if anybody wants to join. I've made the link public. They can come and join and talk to me or talk to Madan. The link, as you can see, is highlighted already and it's posted in there. And if not, maybe what we'll do is we'll
Hello.
shut down the stream.
Sorry. Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
no, as I was just saying, because since 50 years ago we thought certain things were fine tuned and we no longer do today. There's plenty of constants that we no longer think are actually fine tuned, because we've learned that they're necessary, not actually. Um, there were free values in the sense that they could have fallen in any other way, but it fell in this kind of knife edge, and that seems highly improbable. Well, we've uncovered, for example, plenty of things are just the way it is. There is no free values there, and that gives us a good reason to be skeptical about any other alleged fine-tuned parameter. And that's all I wanted to say.
yes, Madan. Shall we keep it going, or you want to call it off? I think your internet is having serious troubles. So
Yeah, I put my data on now. I put my data on, so it should be fine now. I think with my
okay,
data.
let's.
Yeah. So we can just speak for another 5-10 minutes, and then we can go. If somebody wants to come on, then that would be pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I think I've already posted the link, and I think Prima Scriptura was there, but I think we have a serious problem with Scriptura because I think we have a very fundamental disagreement. I'm not quite sure if we'd be able to resolve it. Madan, what do you think? Shall
I don't
we
think I don't think
do?
I don't think it's a fundamental disagreement. I think he has a poor communication style. Yeah.
Yeah, I think fundamental disagreement, as in, I think, yeah, maybe you can say that, but yeah, maybe I put it a little mildly, maybe. Anyways, so anybody who's listening is welcome to join and maybe ask a question or just come on and say hi, and uh, maybe put forth their argument or ask a question they have heard and that's been troubling them, probably. Okay. If not, then we can just move on a little bit further into this discussion and see.
Leave things, they go into chaos, not order. Just leave your room for like 2 years and come back, It's not going to be a perfect organized universe, right? It's going to be a chaotic room. The more things tend, this is what they call entropy, right? The more you leave things, they tend into becoming more chaotic. They don't become more organized. But when you look at the universe and how millions of years pass, it's just even more organized with time. You have these very specific laws that run the universe the way it is. And I don't think you would apply this standard to anything in here, in this life, or in planet Earth. Anything that is very complex or has laws, you will always assume that someone has made it, even if you didn't see it. But when it comes to the universe, why is the standard different? Okay, let me ask you this. Have you seen the person who made this table?
No, I haven't.
But why do you believe someone made this table?
It seems rational. It seems okay.
Why?
It's logical.
I think, Madan, I just wanted to stop here because he has said a few things and then again he's jumping from one argument to the other. He's going from, he's now jumped onto the design argument. Who has made this table, basically, right? Asking that rhetorical question, basically, of the design argument, right? You haven't seen that, basically, and he's asking that question, basically, from that. So I think, do you want to address that? Or can you hear me? Is your internet okay?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I shouldn't have any internet problems. No, I mean, he mischaracterizes entropy. Entropy is completely consistent with the fact that you can form complex structures and order.
Yeah, I think the problem he's having with the entropy is he's as you said, he's mischaracterizing entropy. By and large, entropy is increasing. There's no doubt about it. But it does not mean that in pockets entropy can decrease, basically. Or I mean, I should put it this way, basically, because entropy is always measured for a closed system, and for scientific purposes, we take our universe to be a closed system, basically, right? So within that system, it's increasing for sure, but it cannot happen that within that closed system there can't be pockets where order can arise from chaos, pretty much, right? And chaos may not be the right word, probably. These are all stochastic processes, right? And what it means to have stochastic processes is that they are random processes, basically, right? And within those random processes, I think we have mentioned quite a few times that there have been experiments, simulations, where you can have order arise from complete random events. There's I even talked about it last couple of streams back as well. You can have pendulums. I think this is a pendulum experiment. If you search pendulum experiment from chaos to order or something like that, and you'll find that how very precise movements can be had within the pendulums from a completely chaotic state, basically. And this is just one example of a simulation. Basically, there have been myriads of simulations done, to illustrate that at least fundamentally chaos can generate order, right? So that's a mischaracterization of entropy, I think, as you said. Sorry, go ahead, Martin.
Yeah. I mean, so entropy is the fact that things are going into disorder, entropy is increasing, is completely consistent with the fact that you can have order within that, because there's nothing strictly in contradiction with entropy to think that crystals can form, or snowflakes can form, or trees can form, etc. These, as you said, they're just pockets of organization. Of course, they decay and they dissipate, etc. Energy dissipates, and they form into other forms. There's absolutely no inconsistent with that. That's why that's the misunderstanding of, he's thinking that everything should just be breaking apart and just keep on becoming less and less complex, and that's not what entropy is doing, right? It doesn't mean that you can't form organization whilst energy kind of dissipates, etc. But and then he kind of just moves on to a general design argument, etc. Where where do you think the table came from? We make the inference that there was a creator, and do we really need to go into that? I'm not sure at this point.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a small point on this entropy, whole entropy saga. By the way, I don't know if you're aware, the very latest findings through the DESI instrument. Have you heard of it? DESI instrument, the
I think
Dark
so. I
Energy
think so. That, yeah,
Spectroscopic instrument. Yeah.
yeah, I think so.
So very recent finding through its data is that universe might be decelerating. Basically, its expansion rate might be decelerating. Basically, and that's due to the dark energy getting reduced. Basically, right? And what it means, what it entails, at least theoretically, and we need a lot more data to at least establish that fact, or establish that theory to some sense of legibility, is uh, that that universe can finally collapse into itself, basically, right? So that's a very big finding. If that's true, what the findings of this instrument is, then it has a big impact on the all that thing that entropy is gonna be, just there'll be, if the universe comes back to the state of singularity, it means the entropy has decreased back again, right? So that's going to be a very different implication that of that those theists who keep talking about there can't be a pulsating universe, basically. Universe could be eternal. It could just that it could collapse onto itself, and then there could be another big bang, and there could be another big collapse, and then another big bang and another big collapse. That's quite possible if this if this theory comes out to be true, basically, and if this data is, if this theory is supported by the current data, basically. Just wanted to add that, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the fundamental issue might be that theists can't accept the possibility of any sort of events happening without any sort of conscious agent making something, right? But the issue is even theists believe that the conscious agent itself doesn't create itself, and he doesn't have any other conscious agent who creates it. So the conscious agent is also a set of laws, a set of physics, if you want to call it, right? A set of non-conscious forces that create that it is composed of, right? That doesn't really doesn't have a creator, or it wasn't created by consciousness. In other words, when you think of a grand creator, a consciousness that is omnipotent, omnibenevolent, its omnipotence, its law of omnipotence, you want to call it, this law of omnibenevolence, those were just there. And those are non-personal sort of kind of attributes, rules, if you want to call it. So the theist has a problem with kind of a universe of laws, right? Like the entropy or gravity or whatever it is, fundamental laws. But there's always going to be some fundamental laws that doesn't have a conscious creator, even if you believe there was a grand conscious creator, right? So if the theist is prepared to accept that there's a conscious creator that has its own rules, that doesn't have a conscious creator, and that those rules weren't created by that conscious creator, right? Then the theist and the atheist are both accepting that not everything has a conscious creator, right? The consciousness.
There's a fundamental reality beyond God, probably. I mean, both are relying on those fundamental whatever precepts before. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, the universe. What is the universe? It's maybe let's say the four fundamental forces of the universe, right? And the theist might not be able to accept why would there be four fundamental forces? It seems like it's programmed. It seems like it's designed that there's forces. But the theist accepts there are forces as well that were just there without a designer, which is God. You know?
Right. True.
So in each case, you're accepting fundamental laws that doesn't have another conscious agent creating it. And I just don't see why, if the theist is prepared able to just grasp that and accept it and just think that's it, that we can't just grasp that and just think that's it with the physical universe, with the fundamental laws. There's always going to be some laws that are not accounted for, that are just there for no reason. No any cognizant.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, in a nutshell, what you're saying is we are on the same boat in terms of the unknowns, right? Why are there these four fundamental forces? And a theist would have to answer similar questions on God's behalf, pretty much, right?
Yeah, because God didn't create himself,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But the difference is we've got the four fundamental forces. We empirically and measurably and scientifically ascertain these things, right? So this is within our graspable and confirmed reality. That's the difference.
Right.
And if that's the difference, then and God isn't in that reality, then we just stop there. We can just stop there. There's no need to ask for a further question of where did those forces come from.
Madan, can I stop you for a second? Mulad, if you want to join and have a conversation, you can come and join us, and whatever. It doesn't have to be a question. It can just be a saying hi, hello, or whatever. Except that the condition is that we strictly follow no blasphemy rule on our channel, right? We criticize religions heavily, right? Without leaving any stone unturned, basically, right? But we don't allow that blasphemy being done on our channel, right? In any which way, right? And with that, you are more than welcome to come and join and talk to us. Share your story if you want to, or ask a question, or maybe suggest a few point here and there, or whatever, pointed flaws in our reasoning, or whatever you may have, right? So you are more than welcome. I remember last time I had to remove you because I think your sarcasm, it's perfectly fine. If you want to do that, perfectly fine. But I won't allow you to, do sarcasm on behalf of, insulting somebody's, personalities, basically, right? That they hold dear to themselves, right? So if you want, please join. Sorry, Madan, I had to stop you in the middle. And sorry, one more thing I would say. This is generally for the audience, anybody who's listening, basically. We do respect everybody. We do criticize Islam, and that's perfectly fine. We do criticize Christianity, and that's perfectly fine. We criticize Hinduism, their, whatever, whatever theological differences we may find or problems we may find, we highlight those things. But we don't insult or criticize any community, any religious group as such, basically, unless until we find someone who has done something that we find, objectionable, right? Then we highlight those people per se, but not a community as a whole, right? So that's our policy. That's always been our policy, and I can assure you that's going to remain our policy as long as we have this channel. So yeah, Martin, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I think I finished what I was saying anyway. So unless you've got something to add, do you want to try doing another video, or I'm not sure if you want, your time is up, or
Let's see if anybody wants to come and join. I think there's we still have this video a little bit. I
Okay,
think
go.
I don't know what the conversation. So let me read the comments by Mulad, right? What did I do? Okay, here. All right, come on, guys. I work really hard on my dark, funny, sarcastic, dry, ginger comments. Okay. Thank you for highlighting my comments. May science bless you abundantly. I think science can. I don't know if how science can bless us abundantly. Maybe someone needs to transfer a whole bank into our accounts. Basically, can science do that? Maybe not. Yes, I understand your rules. I'm from Pakistan, so I would rather stay here in the comments. Okay, perfectly fine. If you cannot join in. I criticize all kinds of gods and all theological ideas. That's perfectly fine as well, Mulid. If you want to join and can hold a respectful conversation, you are more than welcome to do so. But we understand if you don't want to join due to some security issues, that's perfectly fine as well. All right, let's run it, Madan, a little further. And then close the stream, okay?
Okay.
Maybe in 5-10 minutes or so.
All right.
So it's not logical someone made this. So it's not logical that this far more complex entity was created by something, but it's irrational to say this simple table is, even though you haven't seen the maker. Even if someone made another table, they haven't made this table. Why do you assume this specific table is made? By the way, probably you would never know in your life the person.
All right, this is the same design argument, Madan. I think we have, if anybody's listening, Madan, I'm getting a feedback from your side. Yeah. Madan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you. Go on.
Yeah, I'm getting a feedback from your side. All right. Okay, so anybody who's seen our channel can go to live stream section and find out a stream that Madan and I did on design argument. He's bringing in design argument here, and one of the very simple refutations here is, you know that tables, somebody designed this table because you have experienced it. Basically, at least you have, even if you have not seen somebody making a table, you most likely have had a table at your home, and then somebody from your home would have told that, okay, we bought it and these tables are made by humans, basically. And that's how you know that there has to be a table maker for there to be a table. But there's no analogous reasoning to say that there has to be a universe maker just because you're seeing a universe. So it doesn't follow. It's a really bad argumentation, to be honest, and I won't expect someone of Muhammad Ali's caliber, not thinking about these refutations of design argument. Madan.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, that's we've spoken about this so many times. It's just laughable that people just continue to make it. But of course, the reason we don't think like that anyway, right? We don't think for example, we don't go thinking in this analogous way for anything else, because it leads to absurd conclusions, right? So we don't go, even though I've not seen somebody in even though I've not seen somebody lighting up the sun, right? There must be a fire maker for the sun because it's made up of fire or something like that, right? We know the sun is not made up of fire; it's thermonuclear, right? So the analogy from fires have, fire makers or something. A fire is made up of fire. A fire is a combustion reaction, It's oxygenated reaction. Does not mean therefore the sun is an oxygenated reaction. It's a
Yeah,
thermal.
sun is made of wood. I mean, sun is made up of wood, and somebody, lit it up. Some absurd analogies you can come up with, basically.
Right, but that's what his thinking could do, right? And similarly,
Yeah, yeah, I totally,
yeah,
totally.
yeah, it's the same thing. But, so of course the reason that we think paint, the table has a maker, etc., is because all of our observational knowledge, and we talk about it broadly, the collective the collective testimony of human beings have learned and understood the causes behind the causation behind that sort of structure called the table, right? The collective testimony doesn't have any sort of similar causes for the universe. The collective testimony of people experiencing things has never learned anything similar for like suns and planets and trees. Instead, the collective testimony, when I say collective testimony, I mean human knowledge, collective human knowledge, including what scientists have discovered, etc. We've discovered different causes for those things. Now, why should we force the analogy to go through where we go from the chair to stars having star makers, any more than we should force the analogy for the fire is made up of an oxygenated chemical reaction, an emission of electrons, and then go, therefore the sun is an oxygenated chemical reaction, an emission of electrons or something, which it really isn't, right? We would get into error to do that. That'll be erroneous as a conclusion. And we can think of millions of different sort of analogies that will lead to us in error. So this shows this sort of method is unreliable. Simple as that. It's not a reliable method to get to what's actually the case. Yeah. So what does this illustrate? It illustrates that some things operate by different rules. Unlike the fire, the sun has different rules. There's different causes behind the sun, and in similar vein, there's different causes behind the universe. Right? Our small sample of fire isn't a good reason to think anything that looks like fire elsewhere is also fire. And similarly, our small sample of things that we know is to be true about chairs, about objects, about cars having designers isn't a good reason to think that trees, animals, stars, galaxies have designers. We have to be open to the
Right.
possibility of different rules. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Muhammad Ali accepts different rules for God, right? He does. He thinks God is different, right? So the universe is different as well in that regard.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay. Let's listen a little bit further and then see.
Are you playing?
Did you ask me to pause, Madan?
No, I'm saying, are you going to play the video?
Yes, I did, and then I didn't include it in here. I did play. Sorry, my bad.
anyone build the pyramids. So why do you believe someone made the pyramids, right? This, but you still believe it. For example, you believe someone made the pyramids, right? Okay, but we've never seen anyone build the pyramids. So why do you believe someone built the pyramids? You will say because it's so complex that it shows signs of design. So my intuitive rationality as a human beings lead me to the conclusion it has to be a maker. I'll say we apply the same logic to the universe, which is far more complex and far more beautiful and far more precise. I'd say that's the only rational conclusion you can come to.
Christianity and all those.
The conclusion, you can exclude many religions.
I think we have already talked about this design argument, right? I mean, complexity. I think he's now jumped on to, from design to complexity argument, basically, I don't think so. We need to talk about it. Maybe we can just stop the stream at this point.
Do you want to skip it a bit further? Do you want to skip the video a bit further to see what he's talking about later?
Sure, let's see.
You talk about Christianity, for example. When you read the Bible, it will be enough for you to come to the conclusion this cannot be from God. The text itself first is not preserved, meaning you don't know who wrote it. It's written by unknown people. When you say the Bible, which Bible do you refer to? They have different Bibles. They have 66 books, depending on the denomination that you will follow. There's only one Qur'an. Every Muslim believes in the same Qur'an. But if you go to Christians, Protestants will believe in 66, Catholics will believe in 72, Orthodox will believe in 82, Ethiopian Orthodox will believe in 88, and they will disagree that these
Okay, Madan, another question, since it's a topic that probably we haven't touched before, at least in our English streams. I think Khali and I have talked about it in Hindi Urdu stream. Is preservation a requirement for a book to be from, say, a supreme being or supreme agent? Is it? I don't think so. At least in my eyes, there is no hard and fast requirement for it to be preserved, basically, right?
No.
It can be. I mean, depends on what kind of a god you are talking about. Maybe the god is really sloppy. Maybe he doesn't want you to preserve his book. Maybe, right? Yeah. If you're talking about a god who's probably who wants it to be preserved, maybe wants to spread the word, maybe then yes, probably. But that's not I don't think it's a given requirement, basically, right? And when somebody talks about that, oh yes, your Bible is not preserved, and what do you mean by preserved, basically, right? How do you define preserved? So maybe what he means is whatever the message was given to, Jesus, probably, right? Is it exactly the same today as it was given to him back whenever it was, right? First century AD or whatever, right? And that's very hard to identify, or at least that's very hard to ascertain, basically, right? How would you ascertain that something has been or remained the same, basically, unless until you have a copy that was present over there at that time and you match it to that copy letter by letter. Even our carbon dating is not precise, basically. It gives you a range of dates, basically, right? And those range of dates are probably separated by maybe at least 50 to 60 years or so. It'll give you a range of dates. Let's say if you were to find a manuscript written in Hebrew or Greek, basically, right? Then it'll only tell you that the paper, that's the parchment, if it happens to be a carbon dated parchment, then it'll tell you it came from probably 40 BC to maybe 60 AD or something in between that. And that's when then the parchment, wherever it comes from, that thing was alive, basically, right? It could be a tree, coming from a tree, or it could be a animal skin or something like that. So not quite sure your preservation claim would be precise at that point as well. And for a Muslim, that's a problem as well, because there is no complete Quran from the very first century of Islam itself. Basically, there is 632 CE to 7 whatever, right? So 632 CE is wrong basically, because 610 is when the revelation started basically, right? So you're talking about 610 to 710 or whatever that comes out to be in lunar calendar, right? 719 probably, I don't know. So you have to say, if something is preserved, do you have anything from that era? The most usual response from apologists is no, it was memorized in the hearts of the Sahaba basically, and then Tabain, it was memorized by generations after that and generations after that. But that's not how it works basically. That's not what you call a perfect preservation, right? Madan, sorry, I've been going on about it for a long time. You want to add something to it?
No, I mean, the question that you asked me, whether or not preservation is a hallmark of the divine, is what you're saying?
So my question is preservation is a necessary requirement for a message to be from divine?
I mean, that's a different way of saying it, right? So one way of saying it is if something is preserved, is that something indicative of divine intelligence?
No, no, that's not the question I'm asking.
Yeah, I know, that's
My
exactly what I'm
question
saying.
is,
Exactly,
yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So, but what you're saying is, if there's a divine creator, would he necessarily create a preserved document?
would preservation
Yeah.
would preservation be a necessary condition for him to create a message
Now,
basically?
yeah, but that's the point. Is that what Muslims are saying, that it's a necessary condition? It's not. They're not saying that. They're saying that if a book is preserved, that it indicates that humans couldn't have made it, and therefore it's more consistent with it being a divine being than a human being. But they're not saying what you're saying, I think, which is
Yeah. But see, what their claim is would be a subset of my case, right? If it happens so, right? You understand the point I'm trying to make. If it happens so that the case I'm presenting, a creator can only create, only create books that are preserved, basically, right? Then what they are saying, at least that their case falls under my case, basically. But if it's possible at all, right? If it's possible at all that the creator can create or narrate a text that can be preserved or cannot be preserved, doesn't matter, right? That's not a necessary condition. Then their claim is already false, pretty much, right?
So what is Muhammad Ali saying? That he's we need to be careful about what Muhammad Ali is saying here. He's saying
Yeah,
Christianity.
no, Muhammad Ali is saying what you're saying, basically. But I'm trying to flip it over and say, is it a requirement at all? I'm asking a different question. But if the answer to my question is no, then his case is already failed, basically,
Yeah, but
right?
what's
That's
his
what I'm
case?
saying.
What's his case? What is he saying?
He's saying because it is preserved, that's why it cannot come from anything else, basically, right?
Let's listen to what he said again. Let's just listen to what he said again.
Okay.
Protestants will believe in 66, Catholics will believe in 72, our Orthodox will believe in 82, Ethiopian Orthodox will believe in 88, and they will disagree that these extra books are from God. Some will say it's from God, some will say it's not from God. You start reading the book itself, then you start finding contradictions in the information within the book itself. You read how did Judas, Judas was the person who killed or self.
I think I
That
went
these
a little too far.
nation that you refer to, you don't know who wrote it. The text itself, when you read the Bible, it will be enough for you to come to the conclusion this cannot be from God. The text itself first is not preserved, meaning you don't know who wrote it. It's written by unknown people. When you say the Bible, which Bible do you refer to? They have different Bibles. They have 66 books, depending on the denomination that you will follow.
Okay, maybe I misheard him. Basically, he's not making a strong case for the preservation. Basically, maybe I misheard him, right? So let me take my claim back. So, but he still mentions preservation into the thick of things, basically, right? And to bring it into the equation, I think what he means is if, and maybe it's an inference on my part. I don't know what you think of it. It's an inference on my part, is that he thinks that if a text is not preserved, that it cannot be from God. Would that be a justified inference on my part? What do you think? From what we heard of.
It could. It could be. It could be like it could be that. So he may not think that it's necessary that God has to create preserved books. He may think that it's more likely that God would create a preserved book. Like he may think that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Maybe he thinks it's maybe he's hard on that fact. Maybe he wants. I mean, he thinks that if there is no preservation, then it cannot be from God. Or maybe he thinks that probabilistically it's unlikely. If it's not preserved, then it's from God, basically. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, one of these two cases, basically, at least.
So when people who think like this Muhammad Ali guy, it's just so unclear how they're arriving at it. So it's very difficult to speculate even what exactly he's thinking on how he's developing it. But if you asked him, could Allah create a world where there's no preserved scriptures? He would obviously have to admit yes.
Yeah, I think he hasn't given a thorough thought on this his own claim, basically, and his
what he
case
might
will
mean.
reduce
What he
to
might
the
mean. So what he might mean that if a book is not preserved, it's more likely to be created by man. And if a book is preserved, it's more likely to be created by a non-human entity or God.
right.
Not that God is necessarily committed to creating
Books that are preserved.
scriptures.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a different sort of point. It's like an abductive argument. Now,
Right.
he might not be thinking about anything like this consciously. We're just kind of charitably strengthening
Giving
his
him all
thoughts,
these. Yeah.
giving him all these possibilities to make sense of what he's saying. Because I do not think any Muslim thinks that God will always create, like he's logically bound to create a perfect scripture. In fact, Muslims believe God allowed scriptures to be corrupted prior to the Quran, right? So clearly it's possible for him to do that. So it's not necessarily bound to create it. So this could be similar to a frame of thinking that atheists kind of expect from an omnibenevolent, perfect creator, right? Who would think that an omnibenevolent, perfect creator will create a good world. And in the same sense, Muhammad Ali is probably thinking that an omnibenevolent creator, a perfect creator, will create a preserved scripture or something like that. I'm not sure.
All right. Let's move on then.
There's only one Quran. Every Muslim believes in the same Quran. Orthodox believe in 70 and 80 books are finding contradictions in the information within the book itself. You start reading the book itself.
Yeah, Mahadin, I think there's no one else has joined. He's now going on to the contradiction part and all those things, which we have probably already covered many times, right? So what I think is we should close the stream at this point. Seems like a nice time to close the stream. I don't think we have anybody else to, come and join and talk to us. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
today we also have ultra low viewership today for some reason. I don't know why, but hey, that's what it is. So maybe let's just close the stream.
Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Yeah.
All right. So everybody, repeating the same thing again. Do like, subscribe, and share our content. And if you can, please do support us on Patreon or buy me a coffee. If you can, basically, if you're able and you can support us, please do, consider supporting us. There are super chats, super stickers, memberships, and whatnot. All these are open for you if you can and able. If not, the best thing you can do is just keep commenting, at least pointing us what we can do better, the topics you would like us to cover. We usually tend to go deep into philosophy. So whenever Madan suggests something, it's more deeply philosophical. And Kelly and I are somewhere in between. We like philosophical topics as Madan does, but then I don't know what our audience likes most. So probably sometimes we have to cater to our audience as well. But seeing today's attendance, I think, I think we'd love to have more attending our streams. So, with that, I hope you enjoyed this stream. If you have anything to add, correct on our stream, please do so in our comment section. If you're going to others' channels, make sure that whatever you hear on here or rebuttals to any arguments, you can go to Islamic channels and tell their host or co-host that these arguments have been tackled on Philo Sapiens channel, and you can divert the traffic here. With that, see you all in our next stream. It could be Hindi Urdu stream, or it could be another English stream. So until then, ciao.